past 3 years, we've seen a huge increase in violent crimes, both at the eastern end of the county and here in Dixon as well. I believe that that's a lack of competent prosecution. We've also seen the lack of getting those crimes adjudicated quickly. I believe that the prosecutors just haven't taken the step to set it for trial and address those particular issues. Other issues that I see facing the county, you read about the county board having a tightening of funds all the time and looking at making drastic measures to either not hire as many employees or replace those that have left, or looking for other ways to increase revenue. I think it's important for your state's attorney to be aware of the budget, nearly $1 million budget that the state's attorney's office has. I've had the opportunity in the past to help create that budget and work with it, submit the bills, work with the county board in taking care of those issues, and also to manage the various attorneys that are there at the state's attorney's office. So I believe those things need to be addressed as well. It's unfortunate that I don't believe the current state's attorney is there to lead that office as often as one should be. If I were elected to be state's attorney, I would be in the office doing the administrative skills that are required, meeting with the county board when necessary, and most importantly, I would fulfill the promise of being in the courtroom prosecuting cases. That was a promise that was broken by the current state's attorney from his last election. I believe it's important to be in the courtroom, knowing what's going on, seeing what particular crimes are coming through the community, seeing how the evidence is being tendered to the court, and keeping an eye on your prosecutorial staff so that you know how things are happening in the office. It is unfortunate that we live with very limited resources, but saying all that, there's always been limited resources. We see many violent crimes occurring in this particular county, 3 separate murders over the past 3 years, and we also see other violent matters occurring too. Those are the people that belong in jail. Those are where we should really utilize the resources. As to the question regarding what would I do with those non-violent crimes, I wouldn't devote as many resources to them. Your state's attorney is still charged with prosecuting all the laws of Illinois, but he's also the gatekeeper, and he can choose which crimes he wishes to devote the majority of his resources to. When you have more important tasks that are jeopardizing the safety of the community, that's where you put your resources. I've had that experience as the first assistant in the prior administration. That first assistant is the person who's in charge when the state's attorney actually isn't there. The first assistant manages the other attorneys, manages their caseloads, assigns their caseloads, looks over the budgets, makes sure that the funds are there, has the open communication with the county board, and in that regard I was also head of the civil division. So I can step in on day one and I'm ready to go. Another really important aspect that I think is necessary in our particular area is I've been a lifelong community resident. I grew up on a farm. I've worked for the newspaper. I've had other small businesses within the area, and I think that's important to know who your community is, know what their standards are, and so that you are promoting those standards within your prosecution as well. Also, I believe it's important that you have a background with financial matters. I've sat on the Sauk Valley Community College board now for a number of years. I sit there as the current vice chair, and we manage a $31 million budget. And we're in the black, where many businesses are not. I believe that education is very vital and important to making this area grow. In my prior occupation, I graduated from Augustana College with a bachelor's degree in English, and so I thought I wanted to be a teacher. And it's a very noble profession. My wife is a teacher at Rock Falls High School, and but then after I graduated, I decided to open a photography studio in downtown Sterling, And I did that for many years. I traveled. I had the opportunity to go to India, of all things, for one of the last weddings that I was going to do. And one of the things that really changed my mind, getting into the legal aspect of it, we were traveling through this small village, and in this car that was air conditioned, and it looked like an old British car, with our driver in there, and you would see the poverty everywhere that you went in India, and then you'd also see this much higher class structure that were very wealthy, and the distinction between the two was very great. When I ended up going through this particular village, I was thinking about many of the things that were on my mind from home, my mortgage, whether or not I was going to be able to afford going to law school, what else was on my mind, like bills and everything else that typically run through your mind. But when we turned the corner at the edge of the village, they had this pile of trash. And it wasn't just the normal trash, it was the trash of the village. And there was this little girl who was hardly dressed in anything, and she made eye contact with me when I was sitting in the back of the car. And she had the biggest smile and the biggest wave, and it just took me aback. Because here's this person who has absolutely nothing in the world. Her outlook on life likely isn't very far. And she's searching for food in the trash of the trash. And here I am, having the ability to travel to another country, thinking about my house, which is probably as big as 3 or 4 of their small huts in that village, and worrying about all these other things when what truly mattered was life, was family. And that kind of changed my perspective. I realized how fortunate I was to be an American, a U.S. citizen, to have that middle class, to have that ability to transition from one class of society to the other, and not have that distinction be very large. And I feared that as our world was changing, that we're losing that middle class at some point. And I believe in the Second Amendment staunchly. I believe in constitutional rights. And I believe that we need to protect them. And as an attorney, I always felt that it was my job to protect the Constitution. As a state's attorney, I believe it's not only my job to protect the Constitution, but to be the gatekeeper for the prosecution, and to protect the residents here as their servant. You see a lot of things happening in the community that you didn't see 4 years ago. These violent crimes, you see child abuse, now you're starting to see prostitution affect this area. Lee County was never this way. It's always been very tough on crime, and I believe that the police are doing a great job, but the problem is that these criminals are getting back on the street, and daytime robberies, all these different things that are occurring. Lee County has been the place to go if you don't want to get prosecuted. I think it needs to change. I want to make it, again, safe, not only for my family, but for the rest of the residents of the county. I believe I have that ability to do so.